Hello and welcome to Back at Camp, Mohave County's only outdoor television show. I'm your host, Captain Don Martin, and with me today is Shane Moline, and Shane's going to tell you about an exciting new bass club for kids. It's called the Mohave Juniors Bass Club. He's going to tell us all about it and what those kids are doing. So don't go away. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Welcome back to Back at Camp. Now on today's show, I have with me professional bass angler Shane Moline. Shane, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Don.
Now, what Shane's going to tell us about today is his affiliation with a new juniors bass club that's started here recently in Mohave County. Shane, tell everybody what's the story on this bass club?
Well, the bass club that's affiliated with the Bass Federation, the TBF, and that's an FLW organization, and it allows these kids at a young age to go out and fish tournaments locally and qualify for a state, and then if they do well in state, they can move on to regionals.
Okay, now I understand that this started off when Wally Miller and his son Frankie, they were actually part of this, but they were having to go all the way to Phoenix just to fish in tournaments.
Yeah, not only that, they had to go down the Wednesday prior to the tournament, and then they had to turn around and go back for the tournament. They had to make 2 turnaround trips in a week, and it was only allowing just a couple kids here in town with the parents who were able to make that trip to fish this. So what Wally did is he came to the Kingman Bass Club. He gave us a short little presentation and asked us to affiliate ourselves with the TBF so they could have their own club here and have a local affiliated club here. So the Bass Club did that. We affiliated. We got enough members to affiliate and started our own TBF. And what that also does for us is allows us to fish the Federation tournaments.
Oh, okay. So now Wally and his son Frankie, they were driving down on a Wednesday to attend the meetings. Then they had to turn right around and go back on the weekends.
They had to go right back to the lake they were fishing.
Wow. And they're fishing the Phoenix area lakes?
Yeah, the Central Arizona lakes. So, you know, they weren't coming up here into our neighborhood. They weren't hitting Mohave, they weren't hitting Meade or Havasu.
So those guys down there, those clubs down there, they fish those Central Arizona lakes. And so Frankie and Wally were having to go all the way down there so that Frankie could fish those lakes and he wasn't being able to fish up here.
Yeah, exactly. And there's also makes it a little tougher too for the kids that have fished around here their whole lives. They're going down there now trying to compete on those waters. So by having the affiliation here and having the local club here, what they've done is they've actually drawn in 10 members now. They're growing, and I became a part of it as somewhat of an ambassador to try to grow it even more.
Right. So you've, since this thing started where it was essentially one of our local youths, Frankie, doing this. Now, since we have a local club, the Kingman Bass Club embraced it, took this affiliation on. Now it's grown really, really good here so far.
It's growing well. We're trying to kind of grow some roots. We're trying to get some direction. I've met with Wally and Frankie, and I wanted both perspectives. And we've got some really good plans coming up in the near future.
Okay. And what is the Mohave Junior Bass Club? What are their rules, regulations? What do they got to fish?
Well, what they do is in their tournaments, they have to fish 3 tournaments, have a 3-tournament season minimum, and then they'll qualify for the state championship, which is on Lake Pleasant this year in May.
Okay. And
they have limited amount of participation from boaters because they're not old enough to drive boats.
Right.
So what we have to have is we have to have either a parent, a friend, or somebody that can come in and operate the boat during the tournament. They do the draw prior to the tournament at the ramp, so there's no nepotism involved at all.
So nobody knows what boat they're fishing
No.
with. Well, who runs the boat?
The operator of the boat, the owner of the boat.
But who picks out where they're going to fish and what they're going to fish?
The kids do it all. The kids pick out what they're going to fish, they tie their baits, they run the trolling motor, they do it all. The operator sits there and makes sure it's a safe manner of operation as far as we're not going to run into too shallow water, but the kid makes all the decisions.
Okay, and there's 2 kids on every boat?
Yeah, 2,
generally.
Possibly 3 if we're short on boats.
Okay.
We're working real hard to bring in some more people with boats that can be out there, and it'd ultimately be great to have 2 kids on every boat and no more.
And now one of the things that I need to talk about is if somebody donates their boat or their time and their boat, what's the current method to pay for the fuel and stuff?
Right now, it's all a donation from the operator of the boat. We are working on some donations and grants from other entities to try to overcome those costs and those expenses.
Okay, so right now it's just people out of the goodness of their heart that are saying, hey, we'll take my boat. You guys draw, get a couple kids, put on their boat, and then the kids say where they want to go and what they want to do.
Right now, it's pretty much the parents. You know what we've had a couple boats lent to the club, and we've had the parents step up, or the uncles or the friends step up and provide a boat. We're running about 5 boats, so we're running 2 kids per boat right now.
Okay, so but we're hoping that we get a lot more local participation, because we got to believe that there's, with Kingman being and Mohave County being a fishing mecca along Colorado River, we should be able to pick up more than 10 kids.
Yeah, and we're trying to grow it in a way is we're looking for serious bass fishermen, serious kids, girl or boy, that are serious about the sport. There is a lot of expense. We don't want to take 25 kids out there and have 5 or 6 of them just not even want to be there.
Right.
I mean, it's an expense for the parents, and it's a lot of a time allotment for the kids.
Okay.
So we are trying to grow the club with the really strong roots.
Right. So it's something that they need to be dedicated to, because it is initially. I mean, they have to have a boat, or they have to have access to boats. The kids got to have the fishing equipment to use. So for a child to say, hey, I want to do this, he has to be pretty committed to fishing in this kind of a tournament format.
Yeah, and it's somewhat not of an instructional type format either. I mean, these kids are basically come to a meeting and then they're on a boat fishing. It's not really, the operator of the boat isn't instructing them.
Right.
Isn't teaching them, isn't tying their knots. They really have to have a fairly vast knowledge of the sport to compete.
Well, I've been reading that now, especially back east, there's a movement to get fishing teams in the high schools. Now, they've had them in college. Right now, they have a college series where colleges in the east all compete for all these awards, and I know the National Guards participated in it, and they've had a lot of big sponsors. And now I was reading the other day where they're actually going into the high schools now, just like a high school football team, they're going to have a high school fishing team.
Yeah, there's a high school championship on Lake Pleasant this year in the Phoenix area.
From those groups down there.
Yeah, and we would more than qualify for them, and that's one of our goals for next year is to have a high school team here.
Oh, okay. Now, what lakes would the kids that fish up here, part of the Mohave Juniors Bass Club, what lakes are they going to primarily be fishing?
Primarily, you're looking at Havasu. We'd like to push some down towards Alamo and even onto Pleasant, just to give the kids more of a experience on them lakes down there where they're going to be fishing the championships.
Well, and from fishing tournaments, fishing Lake Pleasant is way different than fishing Lake Mead.
Yeah, it is.
So if our kids are going up here and practicing on Mead, and then they get thrust into a tournament at Pleasant, they're kind of behind the 8 ball because they don't have that experience on the water,
Yeah,
and it's a different kind of fishery down there.
It is totally different, and it's great experience for them because they can take the 2 experiences, combine them, and increase their knowledge and increase their abilities that much more.
Right. Now, one thing I think I like to hit on is the fact that this is not just a young man sport, that there's young ladies that can absolutely be involved. I know when we look at you and your partner, Tina, Tina's a little tiny thing, and she's been fishing competitively with you now, and it's something that, that the young ladies, if they have an interest in fishing and they want to get involved in competitive fishing, this is a venue for them to step right up and get right in the game.
Absolutely, and honestly, the ladies and the girls, I think they look at it much more in depth than we do. Mm-hmm. And they get involved and they get as serious. Tina's as serious about this as I am.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I ask her where she wants to go for a getaway trip, and it's fishing. So you can't underestimate the drive that the girls will have, and I think you're going to see girls step up into this club and into the high school team and really compete.
Well, I think I think in this day and age, why not? It's been proven that those gals can fish just as good or better than the men can and the boys, and so why not get them involved? And Shane, talking about young ladies in this sport, we know that in today's world, that young ladies participate in a lot of things that 20 years ago they didn't do, and I think one of them that I've seen is the fishing aspect. And I know I got to believe that this juniors club is looking for young ladies to come out and fish with them.
Absolutely, and they're out there. They're out there fishing with their dad. I have an 11-year-old daughter, fishes with me all the time. This is something that they can get excited about. They can go out and they can compete. They're as competitive as any boy out there.
Right. And and like I say, they've, the skills that are required to be a good angler, they've got them. And so they're not any kind of deal where, they don't have the physical strength and the skills necessary. They've got them. So if a young lady wants to get involved in this and get out here and fish competitively, boy, this would be a great venue for them to start.
Yeah, and that's part of what I'm pursuing as being the ambassador for the club. Is I've created some social media outlets where they can contact me and use me as a directive to get into the club or ask me questions where they don't have to show up and feel a little bit,
intimidated.
Yeah, intimidated by the boys. They can come in. I can show up. I'll know them already. I'll introduce them, and they'll feel like they fit in right off the bat.
Sure.
And that goes for the young boys too.
Yeah, because there's a lot of, I'm sure there's a lot of kids out there that look at the bass fishing shows and they just imagine themselves standing up there on the bow of that boat, flipping or pitching or casting, and they're thinking, man, I'd like to do that. Well, here's the opportunity right here, right now in Mohave County and in Kingman for them to get involved, and who knows, we might have the next Gary Clunn roaming around the Kingman neighborhood here. He just needs the opportunity, and we're hoping that this is the opportunity to get them involved. So it's a good program that you started, and like I say, I think that we're going to see the Bass Club grow. From talking to the other members of the Kingman Bass Club, they're excited about it, and I look at that as this Juniors Bass Club as a recruitment tool to get them in our club. So they're fishing as juniors, but they can also move up and fishing with our Bass Club, which we're always looking for new blood, young blood, because average age in our club's getting pretty old. Now look, when we come back, folks, we're going to talk to Shane, and he's going to tell us about some of the programs that they're going to do for the Kingman Mohave Juniors Bass Club, and what you can expect this year in the fishing scene. So don't go away. We're going to be right back after a word from our sponsors. Welcome back to Back at Camp. With me today is Shane Moline, and Shane and I have been talking about the Mohave Juniors Bass Club and some of the things that's been going on, how you got this club started and that you're an ambassador for them. Tell me about what you're going to be doing personally to work with these kids in the Juniors Bass Club.
Well, what I've got on the horizon is on March 29th, we're going to have a small hour-and-a-half, 2-hour type seminar, basically as an introduction of myself to the club and some of the opportunities that I'm going to present to the club that they're going to have, whether it be donating their time to the pro circuits as, running volunteer type work, running fish, just getting their names out there, getting them involved in the industry. And
getting to meet the people, the guys that are fishing in these tournaments, and people who are involved, so they know how tournaments work, and as they get older they can escalate up to the different tournament levels, and so they'll know how all this stuff works.
Yeah, how I started was I was actually just down networking in Havasu, and I met a pro fisherman, and we hit it off, and he took me under his wing, and I started fishing as a non-boater. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm looking for these kids. You got some kids that are starting to hit the 16 years of age, and they're going to want to step up.
Right.
And so this is a great opportunity for them to move out, go fish as a non-boater, as a co-angler in some of these larger professional tournaments, get an idea, get a feel for it, and not only at the same time, but it's like a guided trip for them. Right.
And so now on this thing you're going to do on the 29th, you're going to introduce yourself to the club members, and then and you and Tina have set up some stuff on the social networks so that if the kids are going fishing, they would be able to get a hold of you and say, hey Shane, I'm fishing Havasu on Saturday. We're fishing. What do you think I should do?
Yeah, we've set up a Facebook page, and we've also set up an email.
And what's it? You know what it is?
The Facebook page is Shane and Tina, one word, Tournament Anglers, and you can search it up. Befriend us. We'll friend you. You can send us messages through Facebook, and then our email site is bwtk.fishing@gmail.com.
And what was that again? Real slow.
bwtk.fishing@gmail.com. And I've gone this avenue. At first, I was just going to give my number out and let them text me anytime they want. But then I thought, during the day, I probably won't get a lot of work done. And these kids will be in school, and they probably won't be getting a lot of schoolwork done. So we've set up these two forms that they can reach us, and have my phone number on there if it's something, they really need urgently. But what the whole idea is if say they're going to Pleasant in April, they had never been there, and they're fishing against them kids down there that have been there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up to all of them. And I'm not going to copy all of them. I want the kids individually to ask me, but I'm going to answer them the same way. I'm not trying to give any one kid any more direction than the other. But I want to say, hey, look, okay, it's probably going to be right in the middle of the spawn. Look shallow, look for beds, pull off, look for some deep structure where they may be staging on. Just something simple like that. Just give them a starting point. Give them some colors, give them some techniques.
Okay. Now, and colors and techniques, right now, we're in March. It's just starting to break open, especially down at Havasu. I heard the fish are stacking up on beds, and next month or so it should be just really good down there.
Yeah, it's I've been down there the last couple weekends, and yeah, they're moving in. I mean, there's beds everywhere. The big ones are starting to move up. The largemouth are starting to stage. I'm thinking this weekend is probably going to be one of the best weekends of the year as far as weight-wise and numbers-wise.
So, and just so people should know or could know that when it comes to the smallmouth and largemouth, which one typically comes in first?
What happens is the smallmouth will move up. They're a little colder water fish. But what I've seen down at Havasu is a lot of times the largemouth just follow right with them. They've started to act a little bit like them. But the largemouth typically will wait a little bit longer. They will be more moon orientated, where smallmouth will move up. I mean, I was sitting in a spot last week and I just seen smallmouth just fish after fish after fish swimming into spawning flats.
So they were coming out of that pre-spawn staging area. Now they're moving up onto those flats looking for beds.
Yeah, we were watching them make beds.
And so you could actually watch them.
We would go through an area, there'd be no beds, come back through there, and you see males just working the ground.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty nice to see, because you don't get to see it that much.
Right. Well, I think everybody recognizes that right now anyway that Havasu has just turned into a phenomenal smallmouth fishery and a largemouth fishery. But, it's amazing that lake can take the pressure that it does and still keep producing giant fish and lots of them. Yeah. So, if people want to go down and fish for smallmouth, Havasu's the place to go.
Yeah, and I think that as far as fishing pressure, it's not as much as you think. I mean, you see a lot of boats out there, but a lot of them, they're not fishermen. They're just a lot of pleasure boats out there. I can still find, I can fish all day long and not see hardly anybody, even this time of year when everybody's coming here because of the, how well Havasu's getting to be known.
Right. Now, in the last month or so, you fished in a couple of tournaments. You fished down at Alamo, but before you could go to Alamo, which was a 2-day deal, you were already pre-committed to fish another Colorado River tournament at Parker.
Yeah.
What was the story on that?
Well, every year the Blue Water Casino throws up a big tournament called the Blue Water Big Bass Classic, and I fished it for the last 4 or 5 years. And it's a lot of fun. They put in a lot of extra money that doesn't come from the fishermen, so the payouts are really good. This year was the toughest I've ever seen the river. Out of 29 teams, only 2 limits were brought in.
Oh, wow.
It was really tough.
And you and Tina fished it. Mm-hmm. You fished it on Saturday. It's a 1-day deal. And it was also the first day of the Kingman Bass Club's tournament in Alamo. So you had to make a decision, and you decided that because of a pre-commitment that you were going to fish this Blue Water Classic thing.
Yeah, it's something like say we do every year, and it happened to be that there was a conflict. And we still wanted to fish the Kingman Club. And since, we're only a couple hours away when we're already down in Parker, my son drove down Saturday night to watch the weigh-in for the Classic, and then we just took off from there and drove down to Alamo that night.
Wow. So how did you and Tina do?
We finished second. We caught one of the 2 limits. We only had 6 bites all day.
6 bites
all day? Yeah, we landed 5 of them. One of them swam out with a gits in his mouth. It was heavy current, and I didn't realize it until he'd already let it go. But probably wouldn't have helped us. We ended up losing by probably a little less than a pound.
Wow.
But we finished second.
Got a pretty good paycheck?
Yeah, we did. We made a couple thousand.
Couple thousand in 1 day fishing. So Tina couldn't fish Alamo on Sunday.
Well, she'd opted to step out of the boat and let Tyler fish.
So Tyler, your son Tyler now, how old is he?
He's 19, and he's finally getting into it. I've been pushing him for years, and he's finally starting to get into it a lot. And with my work with the Bass Club, he's seeing that, and he's excited about that. He's going to, do a little help with that, and he's, going to save up for a boat. He really wants to get started. So
So Tina came back to Kingman, Tyler came down, and then you guys went to Alamo.
Yeah.
Even though it's a 2-day tournament, now you're going to fish. You can only fish Sunday.
Yeah.
And that's not even a full day.
No, it was only till 1 o'clock because of the travel times.
Right, because it's so far to get there. So you went down there, and of course, I mean, you're starting with 0 weight on Sunday morning, and 13 teams had been fishing all day Saturday, and the results were in, and I think there was 4 or 5 teams had over 10 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
That they had weighed in on Saturday. So you guys are way behind the 8 ball right here.
Yeah, the week before we went down for one day and practiced.
And you found some fish?
Kind of. We found an area that I thought would hold them when they start staging, and fishing was really, really tough. We had 5 bites all day.
Ooh.
And I was hoping that it would hold, actually, because then I would have a chance to go down there and maybe catch a big bag and do well. But what had happened, the weather was too good, and the fish had moved up into the area that I wanted to fish them, and then moved out of that area into another area.
Oh, wow.
So us going into the tournament, we put on the biggest baits we could put on that we could fish down there, because we were only swinging for one fish. We were swinging for that big fish.
You're trying to catch the big fish.
Yeah, and 7th cast into the morning, I did.
You caught a good one?
Yeah, I caught a 475.
Wow. So that was a good way to start.
Yeah.
So how'd you guys end up doing?
We ended up 5th. We weighed a bag over 14 pounds.
For one day?
For one day, yeah.
Wow. And what was your pattern down there? What'd you find?
That one we were slow rolling big bladed spinner baits in about 12 to 15 foot of water.
So you're just crawling it across the bottom?
Yeah.
Is that what you caught your big fish on?
Yeah, exactly. It's a little feeding flat. I was actually going to start on some trees, and I thought early in the morning I'm just going to run to this little feeding flat. It's only about 50 yards long. We just kept going back and forth on it, and we ended up catching 3 fish. But the first one, the 7th cast, was the big one.
The big boy.
Yeah.
Huh. Wow. So you ended up finishing 5th on that. So now what are your plans now? What are you doing?
Well, right now we got the Bass West Open this weekend. We're leaving here in about an hour or so for that. We're going to spend 5 days down in Havasu, and then we'll be down at Havasu next weekend again. We have a weekend off. We're going to take a couple days off and kind of recuperate, and then we're heading to Lake Pleasant for the Lucas Oil Open.
So you got some big tournaments coming up.
Yeah, the Lucas Oil Open's a big tournament. It'll probably be near 100 boats. They give a boat away, $40,000 boat package away, first place.
That's worth fishing.
Yeah, the entry fees are steep, but that's what we've made the decision to step up to some of these bigger ones, and the competition is really, really tough.
Sure.
And these guys are really, really good.
Well, when you're fishing for a new $40,000 boat, then everybody that's anybody's probably that lives in Arizona is gonna, and it's closed.
Yeah.
So they're gonna go down there and give it a whirl. So you guys are gonna. So your plans, you're gonna fish a couple of big tournaments here coming up. If you had some recommendations for springtime bass fishermen here on Mohave and Mead and Havasu, what would you tell the average angler?
Right now, for the next 2 weeks, go to Havasu. Drive the banks, throw some reaction baits, look for the beds. Go ahead and start your bed fishing. In 2 weeks, middle of April, maybe even a little longer than 2 weeks, start looking at Mohave. And what Mohave will do is it'll start spawning down low, and then the spawn will just move right up that lake.
Wow.
And then once May starts to hit, the full moon early part of May, start looking at Lake Mead.
Okay.
There's a lot of brush in the water on Lake Mead. The fish are going to be up shallow. Even if you're not bed fishing, you're still going to be able to catch them.
What local businesses that's been involved with this bass club?
Well, I've approached a few of them in town. I approached Canyon Plastics here on Andy Devine, 602 Andy Devine, and I met with Eleanor. And I told her what we're doing. I told her where we wanted to go, and she just opened up her store to me.
She gave you products?
She's giving me products. Canyon Plastics gets it. It's something I use a lot, and I'm going to really promote to the kids because it's such a wonderful bait to use, and it's a fish catching bait.
So if some business wants to get involved with the Mohave Junior Bass Club, either as a sponsor or something, how do they do that?
They contact me at bwtk.fishing@gmail.com, or they can call me direct at 928-279-8493.
Okay. All right, Shane. Hey, that's all we have time for. I want to thank you so much for coming down, talking to us about this Mohave Juniors Bass Club, and about where anglers should go this spring and some techniques to do. And we wish you and Tina the best of luck in your fishing exploits out there. And it'd be kind of nice if you want a boat so we could kind of do a story and drag a boat in here on the set and say, hey, yeah, this is what I got for fishing a 1 or 2 day tournament. So, hey, folks, this guy's a heck of a fisherman. If you ever get a chance to fish with him, go fish with him. He'll teach you some things you probably won't ever learn anyplace else. Now, until next week, this is your host, Captain Don Martin, saying keep your line fresh, your firearms oiled, and we'll see you next week back at camp.